You're listening to the Road to Wisdom podcast, weaving stories told by wonderful minds about all things motherhood, health, intimacy, politics, nature, and everything in between.
Join us on an adventure discovering unique experiences that we can learn from to enhance the ways in which we live.
We are your hosts, Chloe
and Keshia. Welcome everyone to the Road to Wisdom podcast. We are very fortunate today to have Melanie Deefolts back in the studio for round number 2. Melanie came in for one of our earlier episodes and it was very popular and lots of people had questions, and I think you put a lot of people's mind at ease and made Steiner's philosophies just a little bit more digestible for people. So thank you. And now we're back for round 2. There are about 740 different topics that we want to discuss with you today, but we're going to keep it in the realm of the birth space because it's a little bit relevant at the moment, and how that ties into nativity. And we might throw in a couple of massive curveballs if we can.
Choose your own adventure.
Yeah. One of those. What if we can add like little clicks? Do you want to go to porn or birth space?
What's your name mean?
So welcome, Melanie. Thank you for coming in again.
Thank you for asking me back. It's good to be here.
Yeah, well, someone who has 5 children, I couldn't imagine we could be in better presence right now.
After you came, we were like, let's have another one. So here we are.
You planted seeds. No, I don't know what's happening with this podcast, but like everyone's popping up pregnant.
Honestly, there was a period of time where we recorded and then there was like multiple people let us know that they were pregnant, including us. And we were like, what happened? What did we do? Is it because of us? Like, did we say something? Do we do something?
What's that special drink I said no to?
It's the good stuff. It's the juice. So great. I guess we'll start with like even preconception, because I guess that is where it starts, planting little spirit baby seeds.
Yeah.
Whether you're trying to get pregnant or not, I guess those seeds can attach. So, yeah, take it away, Melanie.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I was, turning my heart towards this conversation this week, and, there's so much work on this sort of practical part of being pregnant and birth. And as you know, the timeline of life after birth is way longer than the pregnancy and birth process. And even though they're absolutely essential part of it, how do we, during pregnancy or pre-pregnancy, consider the task that we're actually saying yes to? There's an actual being wanting to come to earth with a deed to do, with a job to do, something to contribute to humanity. And we've said yes to shepherding them through that. And so it's kind of interesting for me to sort of maybe, have that conversation with you both, because alongside of juggling 4 children and your partners and preparing for your birth, who is this being that's with us? 2 of them in the space right now. You can fit, the room does actually feel fuller. They're here. So as a parent, there are indications about who's coming. And often I think as we think that they're going to show that light when they're born, but it's actually not until their adulthood that we see the light that we met. So do you know what I mean? That you might not be this one yet, but your other children, you pick up something about them. Like you might go, oh, they're really, I don't know, you can feel their humour, this warmth of movement, or you can feel the peace, or it's not even a word you can put on it. Like you can feel them, you're with each other. And then they're born and they're not that. or they are that for the first sort of 12 months maybe, and then they sort of seem to be getting further away from that. And so our task is to sort of consider, how would I work with this person so that they can be that in their future, so that they can bring that in their future rather than wanting for them to be it now. So part of the pregnancy is to consider your awakening to that, who's there and how much of yourself has to move out of the way to perceive that. It's pretty big. It's a pretty,
I have not been giving this enough thought. I've been like, you know what, podcast, and I think I kind of have shared with a few people, and I'll share with everyone out there right now that with my fourth baby, it took a fair bit of convincing my husband, and he's like, okay, but four's our number. And I'm like, you know what? I'm good. Four's our number then. And I really, there was a proper like bringing her in, and I already had, like, before I was even pregnant, I was already thinking about, we were building this house, and I'm like, oh, where would be a good space, or what would be a really good area for birthing, and like just organizing all of this stuff, and then fell pregnant, and then sat in it. I guess it was COVID as well, so it was quiet, and we weren't super busy work wise, and so I could just like soak in the juices of being pregnant. The kids weren't at school all that often because things were open, things were closed, blah, blah, blah. So I got to like be with my kids, and we got really like, we all got maternal, we got some baby chicks, it got really like juicy, and all like just sitting in that space. And I was like I was still working a little bit, but I was still like pushing away work as well, because I'm like, no, this is my last baby, I really want to be in it. Famous last words. And then this time round, I guess, like little mystery baby that we're still trying to nail down a conception date. I'm like, I'm not in that anymore. I'm not in that space anymore. Yeah. I kind of like, I sat in it, and like my postpartum was really juicy, and like I did as much as I could to kind of be held and stay in the bubble, and like wanted to breastfeed for as long as possible and all of this stuff, because I'm like, it's the last time, getting like super emotional about it, because I'm like, romantic. Our last time. Yeah. And then I find myself in this position where this is the last time.
Well, it's interesting because you're actually freed of that romantic idea, isn't it? Because even though you're like, I'm enjoying it, it's kind of unfree as well, because you're like, I have to be in it more. Yeah. Whereas this one's like asking for something really different.
Well, I guess
you've been freed.
Yeah. And like this baby's come in at a time where, everything's opened up for us now, and I'm feeling this energy to put towards, and it's being put towards this podcast. Like when we both started this, we were kind of like, we were both just like, no babies on the horizon.
We were like planning holidays of like, we were actually even planning to most likely be moving to Italy with you guys this coming year.
Yeah. We were like,
with our 8 kids. Because we're like, each has this is a perfect even number, and it's going to be so good.
Yeah. And
now it's going to be
a year later with 10
children.
kids.
It's a lot of kids.
It's a lot of kids. But, there was, I kind of had this like formulation going of like what life was going to look like and where all my energy was going. And like my kids are getting older, so I'm getting a little bit more freedom there, and which created this space for the like energy output. And now this baby's coming, and I'm like, I hope you know that what your sister experienced is not going to be your journey. And I'm like trying to, I guess.
Being okay with that.
Yeah.
For you have to be okay with that.
Yeah. And I think I am. I think I was very much like, okay, we're doing this. Well, you must know what you're coming into. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and we've had these discussions like of setting really strong boundaries around, like I know in my postpartum, I need to recover, because while I kind of did it with Poet, I didn't really, and I ended up with mastitis and like all of this stuff. Yeah. So there's that aspect that I'm like trying to plan for and get ready for. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be gazing at you all that much.
You're just not there though. That's the whole thing.
I reckon you will in like a couple of months.
Yeah.
It changes, and that I think the thing that is for me is that this mystery, isn't it? Because actually to live with a mystery is to not try and grab hold of it or put anything on it or decide anything. It's actually to live in that taking in, which is what you're doing physically. You know, you're stretching out and taking in and allowing that space for the other. And so in this sort of connection, it's not romanticizing it or clinging to it or naming it, but it's actually being in that wonder of this mystery.
And it is.
Yeah.
It's like it is. There's so much wonder in this because like every part of this journey so far, I'm still just like, how? And like, like, I mean, I've chosen at this stage to not seek external validation for whatever's happening in my belly. And so, you know, really trying to tap in every now and then. And I've had a couple of kicks, which have been nice, but I'm like, but are you still there? Like, is there a baby in there? And, you know, and I go through these phases of, you know, questioning myself all the time. But
I can assure you there's definitely a baby in there.
Yes. But then it is nice being in that unknown. And it's something that, I mean, we spoke about before, even falling pregnant, how pregnancy and birth and like that whole time of life invites you to sit in the mystery.
Yeah, that's right.
And this time I'm really sitting in the mystery.
That's exactly what I feel like. There's a huge difference between this pregnancy and my previous pregnancies, because I'm so out of my head with this one.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm just like, it's an experience that's happening with me, with the baby, with my family. And the only things that I've really thought about is like, I hope that we're working towards hopefully living up on the mountain and I'll just be having a baby there. And I've had a dream about the baby earlier on, about what its name is and what sex it is. And that's all and then I'm like, that's it. Like that's it.
That's it. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
It's a lot, but it's also not
Sex
what I
and
would
name.
usually.
You're not trying to grab onto
like
it.
People like, oh, what's your plan? I'm like, I just don't have one. I'm not really thinking about it. I also don't really care. Like this is my 5th baby. It's just happening.
Well, you're honouring it in a different way. And that's what's so beautiful about having various children is you can hear that this particular child calls something different. Which is what they're like on earth, don't they? It's not a conveyor belt of parenting going on. There's like, you have to meet them individually. And so when it's so different, it's like hard to explain that to other people, but why do we need to explain it to other people? It's just different. Yeah. So you are with it, you're just with it in a different way. Yeah. And being with it isn't organising, you know, an Excel spreadsheet about what you're going to do and when you're going to do it, but to be with this sort of, I'll hear what I need to do when I need to do it. Because they're just so different. Like I just knew who I needed to be near, who needed to be my care provider or not, or following that is, you know, I know that's not strong for everyone, but there is this sort of deeper mystery taking place, and that's very different to this material getting ready.
It's not spoken about often. It's usually like a list. They're all just lists. Yeah. So like, what do you physically need for your baby? What is your birth plan? What are you packing in your hospital bag? It's very much like this external thing happening, but it's never like,
who are you perceiving?
Yeah.
It's funny. One of my dear friends just had a baby recently, and for the few months before her birth, and then I did a blessing way for her. You know, our phone calls were just filled with what she was perceiving, what she was going through that week, what was being prepared between her husband and herself, like all this sort of readiness that has to happen energetically to let someone in. Are we talking about that? Do you know what I mean? Like, because there's so much that this little one can't have you taking with them. So we have to go through like a clipping and a transforming of ourselves, not just our body, but who are we and how we're going forward really is happening in pregnancy as well, because who they need you to be is ready for them. And so it's really, you know, it's not to try and grab words of it, but to really sort of sit with how that nourishes you very differently to, I need this many suits and I need the car seat in, and that all happens. That's like, that all
Especially
happens.
fifth time around, you've already got it all. It's there.
Unless you're me with my first baby who literally didn't wear clothes because I was just like, what is this? I can't even put clothes on you. It's just a blanket and that's it. And I remember rocking up to like one of my first midway, like at her little studio space, and I took Birdie there and I was like, sorry, I just couldn't even dress her. And she was just like, okay. I still laugh about it because it's just, what a time.
That's right.
And she survived. Like for everyone who doesn't have the right number of suits, Birdie survived. She's doing great.
She was a summer baby. She thrived. Yeah.
It's interesting though, because you could consider though what like I just know with one of my children when I was pregnant with her, I just felt this like enormous strength. Like she just was just like a powerhouse, you know. I could just feel this like really deep strength. And her sister, who was already on earth, was really like would spend a lot of time on my lap, and you know. But then the moment that her sister was born, she just fled my lap. Like it was like this baby coming in with her strength gave her sister these wings to just kind of this confidence to be in the world. And when we went to playgroup the first time after I birthed the baby, everyone was like, we can't believe your first child is just so different. It's like, yeah, this baby's carrying this enormous, you know, strength, because it's really there. Like you can feel it for that first few months. And then she went through childhood. And it was like she ended up being really, really sensitive. Like she's very perceptive, like overly perceptive, and that would rock her, you know, because she's picking up so much. And now at sort of 19, it's like I'm seeing that powerhouse come back. It's here. She's just about ready to walk into adulthood. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, like when this mystery, like I don't even know if the word is strength, but I know I can perceive it, I can feel it, and I'm now starting to see it grow in this woman, because she's had like, you know, like if over perception, you grab it, it turns into kind of anxiety. And yeah, she's just been traveling around the world by herself. Incredible, like just not surviving, but absolutely thriving. And this capacity that she's got is just showing itself now. And it's really just incredible to like just even think about what that pregnancy asked of me, you know, and some of what your personality in your pregnancy is not even you. Do you know, like, have you ever noticed you get new parts of yourself?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the baby. They're like preferences for colour. I had one that like I just couldn't get enough blue. Like I wanted to eat blue. Like I just had to have blue around me. And not even on purpose, but the whole birth room, everything was blue in it. Like it was just like this colour was not my preference. But it's this person carries this still as a 10-year-old, like has this real
Really like just loves blue.
fascination with blue, but not like a personality like blue's my favourite colour. Like blue does something for me. It does, you know what I mean? It moves them back into their selves. And so, yeah, I think it's really awesome to be having those conversations and considering who is here and what am I having to sort of trim off in preparation for who's to come. And what have all these other kids got you ready for?
Yeah.
Like if every child has got you ready for the next child, that's what I just like, sometimes it's like in such awe, like who's coming? Like when our fifth child came in, I was just like, holy moly. These ones have put me through the ringer. What's this one going to do? What muscles have I got?
Yeah, I feel that. I'm like, because I've been talking a lot about my previous births with people and how you know, I had my first birth with my daughter, and it was hectic. It was so what you would see in Hollywood, and you know, and I feel like half the reason it was like a Hollywood movie is because that's all I knew about birth, and that's what transcribed. And then I had these 2 beautiful home births with my boys, and they were so simple and blissful and easy. And I'm like, oh, it's because I wasn't in a hospital. So when I was pregnant with my 4th, I was just like, an hour tops, like surely an hour tops. And it was my longest, most trialing birth. So now I'm like, hands up, don't know what it's going to be. Like I'm not making any predictions. Like my first 3 babies were all born on the new moon. And so I was like prepped on the new moon for my 4th. I was like, yep, it's coming. Like this baby's coming now. And then that new moon came and went. And I was like, it must be the next new moon. So I'm like prepping for an extra
like 45 week pregnancy.
I would have nearly been 45 weeks. And I'm like, all right, we're in it for the long haul. It's a new moon baby.
God.
Full moon comes around and boom, like, and then longest labor I've experienced so far. And then she came into the world and I was like, right, what the hell was that? So all my preconceived notions of me knowing myself, I'm like,
It's just like that thing of holding on to what you know rather than living in the mystery of the not known. And it's like you have to take all the wisdom that you've learnt and take it forward but live like you know nothing. And that's what, you know what I mean? Like that whole idea, well, this is the way it's always been. And how do we hear that in our voice and just let it be unknown, just let it be something we're turning over in our heart rather than trying to grab hold of, because it all kind of makes sense on the other side. Like every birth of mine was just so different, and who was in the space was different, what turned up with, you know, because I'm like, you feel who's in the room, like you have to be very careful about who's around. And actually my 13-year-old's just doing a birthing main lesson at school. They do like their relationship to the cosmos, and their birth story is part of their class.
Kids, hey.
That's so good.
And it was funny because she had to interview her father and I, and she's like, but Dad didn't say that and Dad didn't say that. I said, yeah, because they're 2 people perceiving an experience in a different way, you know, and that's all it is. It's your perception. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just how you understand what you're perceiving. And so, yeah, and it is so different. Like what I chose for our 5th child, I would be surprised, you know, my holding on to what I thought it would be. But I'm like, no, I'm going to the birth centre because it's really hot and I don't have air conditioning at home and I don't want to be hot. So I'm going to go to the birth centre in Byron. But
Valid reason.
but it's also, I just knew I needed to be there. I knew what room I was going to go into. Even I had a doctor who had this deep, he knew his task was with me and the baby. Like it was really this very karmic experience where he was like, he just got blinkers on. He was just like, he just had something for me. And now when I see him, he doesn't even know me. Like it was just like that moment, that time. And he like rolled up his sleeve. He hasn't delivered a baby in a long time. He's like moved my husband out of the way and just sat with me in the space while James is like, where do I go? Because this guy's just stepped in. But there was just, and you know, I followed that because it makes no sense that I did that, but I knew I had to follow it because I saw it. I saw that before I even went into labour. Knowing what room I was going to be in. I'd never even been there. I just saw the colour of the room. And then, of course, when we're in labour, I'm like, of course, that's the room we're going into.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And,
I think that's so beautiful just for any pregnant mamas out there, and whether you've had babies or not, it is such a relaxing thought. It's the baby talking.
taken over.
Yeah. Knowing that your baby, no matter what way your baby comes through, that's exactly how they needed to.
Exactly.
So, yeah,
And that's what I think was, for me, I could really let go into that at the fifth time, because I just know my responsibility to these individual spirits that I'm living with, and I just have to turn up with what I've got, and I have a responsibility to grow what I need for them. But putting my idea onto them is something that I feel actually impinges upon my parenting. Like, if this idea that this is the way it has to be actually stops me being able to perceive in their future, or needing that flexibility for them. So, you know, I mean, I didn't know I was pregnant until I was 20 weeks pregnant with Silas. She was actually a surprise.
Proper
I
mystery.
found out by her moving. I went, oh my God, what is that?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she really slipped in. Like, as in, I was sick with something at the time, so all of my symptoms were explained away by this illness that I had, and had been in bed for many months with this thing, and it was then I felt her moving around. I'm just like, what the heck is that? And
Oh my God, I just think about that. It blows my mind.
and so
But that's how we would have all known once before.
exactly.
Really.
And what was really interesting was a couple of weeks before that, I was sitting in the car and I heard the name Silas, and I was like, wow, that's a really beautiful name, but I'll never need another baby name again. And I literally watched the name just fly out the car window, and I was like, yeah, see you later. I don't need you. And then I was like, so
Come
apparently we do.
Come back.
Oh my gosh.
So I didn't know what the baby was going to be, but I just knew when we found out. I was like, and I never told another person, never spoke to my husband about the name. I just held it until right at the end, and I said, this is the name. I actually told my mentor before I told James. And her name is like prayed for or wished for. That's what it means.
Oh.
And it was like
Is this your third baby?
Fifth.
fifth.
Oh, fifth baby.
Yeah.
Fifth.
So I don't know who was praying for her, but
It's James.
I think it was him. But yeah, so really leaning into what she required was very different to what I needed, and who was in the room and how it was going to be. There was things that I tried to hold on to, which actually ended up being erroneous, not for her, but even for the kids. Like, oh, you all have to be there. Like, I wouldn't let them go anywhere for like the month, because I have really fast labours as well. So we didn't even know if I was going to make it to the hospital. Like that, you know, my longest labour was 2 hours. And so, but previous to that was like 50 minutes from contraction to baby. So we were like, am I even going to make it there? So the 18-year-old and the 17-year-old weren't allowed to go anywhere. So they hated summer waiting for her. But that was me. That was when I was trying to control it, you know. It's like, and that's the thing is like there is part of you that's leaning into it, but there's always going to be part that you're trying to cling on to, that you don't want to let go of, that, you know what I mean? And you learn it as you go, but it is so essential to recognise, to go back to beyond me, beyond what I want, beyond what your husband and you talk about or your partner talks about. This being is needing this configuration of people to come into this earth for their future, to take up that task. And everything that happens in their life between birth and adulthood is a preparation for being able to bring themselves forward. And there's no richer time to perceive them than pregnancy and that first few months after birth. Like, actually perceive who it is you're seeing there. And so one of the things in the anthroposophic sort of pictures is to work with the Sistine Madonna. It's a painting, and it's the painting where Mary is coming down. It's like looks like she's coming down from the heavens. She's got Jesus, and you can see all these. There's these curtains, and you can see all these faces of babies waiting to come in the painting. But I didn't even know they were there until someone's told me, and I'm like, there they are. Like, it's incredible. So she's gone up to the heavens, taken her baby down. So when they talk about you're going to the stars to get your baby, you know, it's like you're literally in your birth, you are the closest to the spiritual world that you'll ever be. You're actually the furthest away from earth in between contractions. So when you're in contraction, you're right on the earth, and then in between it, you're going up to the heavens to bring the baby down. It's really beautiful. So, and then the way it's sort of in the painting, they've got these, the seraphim and the cherubim at the bottom, which is the highest order of angels, and she's above them in this picture. So one of the things is to sort of consider, or just to look at that picture while you're pregnant, and again, not grab hold of anything, but to say yes to this mystery that you're participating in.
I think it's a really nice thing to touch on, or just like bringing it into like a practical sense right now. There's because we're talking about birth so much now. There's podcasts everywhere. There's like the free birth movement. There's so much going on and being spoken to, and I feel like a lot of us cling on to ideas and what we think we need, and that sounded like really good, I'm going to get that and I'm going to have that. And I got that reality really beaten out of me in my second pregnancy, because I was like, no, I'm having a home birth, I'm having this, I'm having that, and this is what I'm doing. And then that didn't go to plan. And I remember feeling so comforted when someone said to me, this is just what your baby needed, and that wasn't your plan, but that was her plan, and you have to figure out that for your baby. And it's not always going to work out how, like your beautiful vision of what your birth is going to be.
That's right.
Is actually not, it's not real.
Well,
it's not always for you. It's for your baby. It's that
selfless devotion, really, which is different. So you need to advocate. Someone needs to advocate for you while you're in labour, or you're having the cesarean. Someone needs to advocate for you, because you aren't of this earth in some ways. But it's that, how do I say yes to everything that comes with it? Which, in parenting, that's one of the most difficult things, is that we don't feel our unfree moments are because we've got an idea of what we thought they should or shouldn't be doing. And that starts with birth. And I know with my first child, I was 24 years old. That was like 22 years ago. So there was not the birth stuff there is around now. There was like Sheila Kitzinger and a couple of books. That was it. And I remember I booked into a birth centre in Melbourne, and they said, you need to go, go around to the hospital. And there was all these women that were like, no, I'm not going to go look at the hospital because this is the birth I'm having. And even at 24, I was like, well, this is your intention, but you need to kind of know what's happening over there so that someone can advocate for you in that time. And we have to be open to all. It's like we have to penetrate all pathways so that in that moment we know what call to follow and what not to follow. Do you know what I mean? Totally. It's like, because if you have only an idea, then how does your wise part lead you somewhere else if you haven't looked at those doorways? Yeah. So I think that's for me, is when I'm like working with that painting, is like, what does it mean to hear what the other needs? And of course you're in that, like how people are, how they're acting, how they're talking. Like I know with Silas, our fifth baby, because it was in the Byron birth centre, and the floors are really noisy in there. It's like the bath filled up in 8 minutes, which is good because I have a quick birth, but any walking was really distracting. Like it was like, and tapping on I could hear someone tapping on the keyboard, computer work. And so I said to my husband, can you just turn some music on? I've never had music before, ever, because I just never needed it. Like I just needed that space, but you're just so hyper aware of everyone. And the song that was playing as she birthed is like so incredible. Like the lyrics are just like, and even those lyrics helped me parent her. Just what was being said in that song was like, I see your light. And so for me, that mystery is part of raising her. Like she needs something for her future that we don't even know what their future is going to be. really, do we? The strength that they're going to need. But I just know that she brought me closer to truly understanding this spiritual task of parenting. So there's this sort of physical world that we're in, and not to sort of get really like new agey, but to recognize that there's the spirit that lives in all the deeds that we do, that it's a spirit-led life, you know, that this has a meaning for your future that will eventually hopefully unfold with strength. And that's one of the things about Steiner's work, is to get them to adulthood so they have an inner freedom, genuine inner autonomy, which is different to fighting for our rights outside of ourselves. It's this inner autonomy to know thyself and to know who you are and to hold on to that. And then a love for the world, and such a love for the world that you will contribute to the world, and you will bring who you are to the world. And it sits behind all of that activity. Doesn't matter where your child goes to school, that might resonate with you. Is that so that the birth process is part of that for me, is like there's me participating in it, and then there's me being led in it. And how do I prepare to be led where I might not, you know, have planned. And also not to shut down people's experience, because sometimes you have to digest that afterwards, that wasn't what I really wanted, and you can't kind of just squirrel it away by going, well, that's just what the baby needed either, because that's painful, you know, like if it's not lined up. So yeah, how do I be in it enough so that I'm fully there, but there's a flexibility of what's taking place? And so part of that for the sort of pregnancy from a sort of anthroposophic picture is to try and consider this incredible spiritual mystery that's taking place. And it's an initiation. I mean, you know, people go on these spiritual journeys as adults, but parenting, birthing and parenting is like a fast track.
The ultimate
initiation. Yeah.
And by fast track, you mean the longest road you can take to spiritual initiation.
Well, it's quickening. It's requiring you to do it all day, all the time.
Yeah.
It's literally like 1,000-day Vipassana.
Yeah.
But it's the opposite, because you're just talking a lot.
So like when you're not
yelling a lot, when never sleeping or resting.
That's the thing, is when you're not sleeping and you still turn up, what part of you is turning up? It's the part that said yes to this.
Yeah.
Like if you knew what you were saying yes to.
not the most
I
glorious
think it
part
is
of
though,
myself.
because why would you get up if it wasn't your best part?
But
why
also,
would you get up?
I actually saw on the this morning, I saw this mum, and I just was like quickly looking at our Instagram, and she'd like posted something like, for sale 2-year-old, being funny, wakes 3 to 4 times a night, does this, does that, and it's just a photo of her like she's dying, and she's like, I haven't slept for 4 years, but look at this fucking amazing breakfast I've just made, and look how blessed I am, like the baby's sitting there, like, and it's just funny, but I just really felt it, and I was like, yeah. That's just
it's
it.
that devotion, isn't it? It's like
you
actual
actually don't
ultimate
sleep,
devotion.
but you wake up every morning and you survive, and you just get it. You just do it, and it's not.
And
like,
at the end of the
because
day, you're not like, well, that just fucked up my day. Like at the end of the day, you're like,
ruin your day.
They're
You
like
just
asleep,
do
and
it.
you're like, oh,
I know,
how cute they are.
But that's the free part of yourself, because on some level you did say yes to it. Do you know? And that's what's so incredible about it, is that part of yourself that doesn't hold it against them all day is the free part of yourself. And how do I grow that part of myself so that that's in operation all the time? And it is tricky, you know, like we were finished having babies. Like we had a 18-year-old and a 7-year-old, like done, you know, between 18 and 7. And, you know, even still, like it is hard. Like I'm 46 years old, like getting this child in and out of a car seat, and each time I'm like, I hear myself doing it, and then I'm like, somewhere in you said yes to this, you know, and there's such a massive responsibility for it. It's actually not even about it's not about me. It's that this human being needed this configuration of people, and we said yes. Somewhere we said yes. But
Still trying to nail that point down, but it did happen.
yeah. But it really has, it's not to be idealistic, but to actually go when I can consider the spiritual task of these human beings. This is not this romantic idea about just wanting a baby and wanting mini-me's or whatever. It's actually going, this is the future of humanity right here. How would I turn up for that task?
Yeah.
And how would I honour it? So you've got that sort of 6 weeks after birth where, the fact that you're pregnant for how long you're pregnant for, it's kind of like 10 months. And so from a zodiac point of view, they're kind of missing 2 to 3 star signs in the, if you did a full 12 months, they would be in the womb for the whole zodiac. Possible to birth a baby, it's not, you can't do that. So they come out sort of with this sort of missing piece of this 12 zodiac. And so that kind of 3 months after birth is really like the completion of that. And so again, depending on your life, depending on what baby you're up to, is that how you might want to honour that. And for us, we stayed in pretty much close to my room for 6 weeks, like didn't leave the house.
Wow.
And yeah, so specifically like for one child, we didn't leave my bedroom for 3 weeks. Like I went out to go to the bathroom, she never left. We did it different with each one. One actually ended up in hospital for nearly, on and off for 8 months. So that was different for her. She had a whole different relationship to it. And then of course Silas was different again. But there's a sort of this imagination around this sort of 3 months afterwards and what is essential, because there are essential things when you've got 5 children to be doing, and there's then honouring where this other person is. And that doesn't change. Like we've got 22-year-old conversations and we've got 3-year-old conversations in the house, and like we're constantly having to move between this spectrum of needs. And again, what helps is putting the spirit of the other first, knowing that Phoebe's still developing into adulthood, Silas is like in a toddlerhood, and everyone else is in between. So that 6 weeks afterwards, or 6 weeks of sort of staying in, I know that there's many books about that sort of nourishment for the mother and the kidneys and the sort of the energetics for the mother, but there's also this sort of a softening into the world for the baby, that they're not separate from anything because they're this open being, and everything that's happening, they have to digest everything, like everything that's in the space, everyone's thoughts, everyone's feelings, everything. And so keeping them kind of in for me is like helping them have less colicky stuff because they're digesting less.
Yeah.
I found that really true for my children.
I think even from like a more scientific perspective, like good chiropractors and things like that, that's what they say. They're like, you need to just lower it, like stay inside, turn the lights off, turn the music off, turn the TV off, turn everything off, have calm.
Less colours, less sounds,
like all of
less
it,
smells,
like nothing, like really tone it down because that's actually what
the
fuss is.
Exactly.
Yeah, like they have to process that.
That's
why
right.
babies go to sleep when they're out and about. And they're like, everyone's like, oh, look how good your baby is. And you're like,
they're just trying to
they're
get out.
shutting down.
Shutting down.
We call it teleporting. We're like, I wonder where they're teleporting to. It's like
they just cannot cope with it. They cannot handle being.
That's right.
They wouldn't be able to engage with that. So they just sleep. And then everyone wonders why they get home and their baby doesn't sleep all night. And they scream
and
it
out.
Like, they have to.
That's so interesting too, that like the digestion and the colic, like that link of your, like as soon as they come earthside, they're digesting new information. And like when you put it in terms of the aware parenting stuff, it's like that's a stress. Like every time they've introduced to something new, might only be a little bit of stress, but it's still a stress that they need to process, and that will lead to crying. It's the only way they can kind of let
it's
that
no different
stress
to like
out.
childhood too. Like after Halloween the other night when my kids wanted to go trick-or-treating, and I was like, all right. And Rosie, who's 3 turning 4, had obviously totally different experience to my 5 and 7-year-old, because when she got home, she was just so frustrated that we weren't reading this book. And I was like, all right, this is like, I guess this is it. You got to process all that shit you just saw, like all that scary stuff that you think
gory.
is scary
and
they think is fun. Like you've obviously perceived that totally different, your experience. And you're just like, and I'm like, okay, I guess she's had a massive like our tantrum and cry. And I was like, all right. So I guess it's no different. And then it just as adults and.
But then we
So
like
how
with
do we-
babies, we label it as colic. And you're like, well, you could probably do something
it's
about
true.
it.
There's
Or a sugar meltdown. I could have easily just said, oh, I've had a chocolate.
that's
You're
right.
losing it. But really.
Well, they know that even about kids' parties is actually not about the food, it's the activity that they have to deal with. So that's why we stayed in the bedroom for a couple of weeks, because if you consider, like rather than me having to hold that energetic boundary for them, the bedroom does that. Because what person runs like a wild, crazy person into someone's bedroom? Like if anyone's going to come and visit
My
you,
kids.
well, besides your kids, but you know, like if you've got your parents coming to visit or someone's coming to visit, there's this kind of reverence when you walk into someone else's room.
Yeah.
And when they see you in the bed, they revere where you've just been, where you are. Their voices change, everything changes. So we kind of set up this like just a chair for the visitors, and they would come in and see us there if we didn't have many. But it was really like, it was just an easy way to put down a boundary and go, there's this mystery is still taking place. They're here, but they're not here. They're still coming in. They're like everything is, they're feeling everything, and that's that passing around and all the things is another thing to digest. So so we did that. But, so basically our third child, I rarely left the house for 3 months, and happily. Like it was actually a happy thing for me. But really funny is she is a real introvert. Like she actually is an introvert. So I'm not really sure if I was doing that for me or for her, because it was like, it wasn't really like there's no rule book to it. I just kind of followed that with her. We'd go out in the pram only, not in the car, all those sort of things. But it just was how our life was at that time. And so there's some sort of this sort of sensitivity that she's got. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting that we kind of locked away for 3 months till she had that full zodiac. But if people are looking up sort of Steiner pregnancy and birth, you might see these veils that people put over the bed. I don't know if you guys know about that, but you put a pink and a blue veil together over the baby's bed. And there's many things written about that. You know, some people saying it's the sort of the light that's shed in your womb, the colour of that light. It's like a violet light. It's not, you know, when you close your eyes in the sun and it's like orange, but then it goes like a dark violet-y colour. So some people say it's around that. Some people say it's the colour of the spiritual world, like it's not an earthly colour. It's this sort of, this two tones together. So it's not actually dying one thing. It's the two of them together that create this light. And so, you know, it's such an ideal to put it over a bed, because how much time does the baby spend in a bed in 6 weeks? So we made curtains out of it for our bedroom.
Really nice.
Next level.
Yeah. We're just really taking it the next step.
Yeah.
Well, again, I'm just like, well, what is this? Because is it true? Is this real? Like how, you know. So I know for myself that when I was in that light, I can't really quite find a word for it, but it did. I just felt really held. Like it was, you know, because you look normal, but you're not normal. You're still not fully back, you know. And so there was this sort of softness that light created for me, to have that kind of there with them. And, I've still got some dye if you want some.
Yeah, cool.
Because you only need a tiny bit. I have these big packets of this solar dye.
If anyone wants to make them for us, like, that'd be great.
We'll do it next time you're in. Melanie will just like get the buckets out and do it.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's really interesting to sort of recognise that he did kind of really talk about that when someone is taking up a human life, there's many ways he kind of spoke into that, but also one of them was that smile at 6 weeks was a yes, I'm in. It's like it's a saying. It's like the last signature on the contract for them to take up that destiny, whatever that be. So there's these incredible mysteries that he's talked about, and you can see it symbolically in babies. But that's how I kind of then associate it to this Christmas picture that, as an adult, we go through that rebirthing and that awakening more and more to who we truly are, and the preparation required for that. And that's not necessarily at Christmas time. That can happen at any time of the year. But on like the spiritual festivals and how they're placed around the cycle of the year and the zodiac is significant to that. So how people want to sort of celebrate Christmas, or how we could honour what's actually happening for a mother, and this sort of picture that is a possibility of the awakening to something higher in ourselves if we choose to do that. So so that's how we got, when you said to me, can you come and talk about Advent? I was like, well, you guys are pregnant. Could be good to talk about that initiation.
Yeah.
And how then it's, rather than someone saying this is what you should do at Christmas, like consider that picture, this birth of this incredibly unique individual coming in, and that's happening on earth with this baby and these children. And in their adulthood, if they choose to, they can continue to have this awakening to who they truly are and why they're here. So Christmas is a time for that, for us in our house.
That's amazing. And
what
then
is
you get
that?
to do it every year.
Yeah. So what are the things that you guys like do on a practical sense?
Yeah, so on a practical level, it's the 4 weeks before Christmas. So 4 Sundays before Christmas is what's called Advent, and it's that preparation and purification of this sort of time. And how we kind of work with that is by, well, one of the things Stein talked about was that each week was one of the 4 kingdoms that live within the human body. So the first kingdom being the mineral kingdom. And that mineral kingdom is our bones, it's that like that mineral part of ourselves that gives us form. And so on that week of Advent, we collect stones and shells and crystals from the mineral kingdom, and we have like a little table set up with that, and we light a candle at that one candle, and we sing a song. It's an Advent song. Which I'm not going to sing for you.
No, you don't.
But it just is acknowledging this mineral part of us. Without the minerals, we would not be. So in the world, I mean, this mineral kingdom, this has been here for millions of years, these minerals. How many human beings how many times have we seen these minerals as we pass through? So the first week is that, and then the second week is the plant kingdom. So moving from mineral to life, that's the life forces. That's what moves around us and makes us alive. So the mineral's not alive, the plants are. And that's our etheric body, or our life forces. So when you're like tired and limp but you're still alive, it's those forces are really low. So when you're pregnant, you're in a like unlimited stream of that, interestingly, because you've got...
I wouldn't know about it.
Because you've got the etheric of the baby and you housed in one body. So you often have that time where you start peaking and feeling really good because you're under false circumstances. You're under false circumstances. You got the second. So then we, honour this through plants, and the song again acknowledges that without life we would not be alive. And then the third kingdom is the animal kingdom. And that's our our feelings and our activity, so how the animal world react out of their sort of animal nature. They like, dislike, go towards something, don't go towards something. And you can perceive that with your horses, like we've just talked about. There's this real activity of connection, but when you're not there, they don't think about you. They're just drawn to you when you're there, drawn to food, drawn to other things, and that's that feeling life that we have. So what separates the human is this ego, this I, the part of ourselves that can look upon ourselves and consider life and others. And that is the 4th week. So these are all this preparation of this sort of 4 parts of my being that makes it possible for this Christ child, this higher part to be born.
Wow.
And so with all the sort of, I guess, all the junk that goes on with Christmas, it's really important to us to have that, because it's nothing to do with Christmas. I just want them to know that in their future, if they choose to, they can continue a path of self-development, and they already know these are there. So how our children are considering it is this song every night, and songs about, we light the candles, we put the candles out, we tell stories. But what's going on for my husband and I is the adult version of that, like really honouring these 4 subtle bodies, which also makes it, again, easier to look at your child and go, this is incredible. Like, isn't it? Like, it's incredible to think this 4 subtle bodies are in this human being, and they can make you feel run ragged, and but it's an absolute spiritual being there that I'm not above, but I'm the shepherd of getting you to adulthood. So, and then for Christmas, all the candles disappear and there's just the one candle on its own. So we do have a nativity scene. Again, it's just symbolism. It's not actually this kind of Christian idea. It's this esoteric picture around, the humble little stable, our little humble body, even the pictures of the nativity scene are speaking to these 4 subtle bodies, and that the masculine and feminine of Mary and Joseph, that's not 2 different people, it's the parts of ourselves. So when you're pregnant, your masculine has to really drop out so that the feminine can be in that really, so that's kind of why you need your partner around to hold the, do you feel it? Where you kind of feel them really holding that boundary for you, because you're going really soft. You have to allow that baby to take up more space. So the Christmas picture for us is less about trying to make it fit into Australia, because it fits as a human experience. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The cold and the snow, like when you're in the dark night of your own experience of growth, you feel the darkness there. And what is it that keeps you going? It's this one star that shows you the way. And then it does go on until the 6th of January. It doesn't end there, because then you've got the 12 holy nights where there's an image that's where you're spoken to by the angels. So there's only these sort of time where the veil between earth and the spiritual worlds open up, and that's around your birthday. And Christmas is another one where there's this sort of opening. Again, doesn't matter where you are on the earth, because these 12 holy nights are a time where you can have dreams or revelations about your year ahead.
Interesting.
And have a look at what we do at that time of the year.
Party!
Isn't that funny?
Yeah,
the time where you could be most conscious.
Away from that, really.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't do that anymore. I go to bed like same time as my kids on New Year's Eve. And
I feel like one of our running themes.
It's probably a good time
is
to go
disassociation
camping and be like
it
out
is
in nature.
It is a really good time to, and that's the thing is, like, when I talk about this sort of solitude or this quietness, it doesn't mean my children are quiet, but I'm living in a different way inwardly. And, I have to say that turning up to Advent every night, sometimes I'm just like dragging my feet, because it's like, I really don't want to do this. Because, again, anytime you're just about to grow, the not wanting to let go of yourself has to be there. And so...
Does that remind you of transition?
Exactly. When you're on the edge and you think, I can't do this, just before the birth is about to take place. And so you can see, just like from a human development point of view, there's so much to it. And it can be as spiritual as you want it to be or not, but there's this symbol point that we all understand, that resistance and that the chaos, like in Advent, everyone feels really busy and pushed, and arguments start happening, and there's this like real like discord just before the birth of this highest I. So yeah, so I thought it was really interesting that you asked me to speak into that, because it is really on another level going on, you know, for you as well. And how much you want to question that for yourself is up to you. You know, you might go, whatever, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to plan my birth.
So I was actually just thinking, because we've been talking about like what we're going to do with these, because it's the first time we've ever had school holidays.
Right.
I'm like, what are we going to do? Like, I feel like we have to, it'd be really nice to like really make the most of it. And I'm like, I just don't know what we're going to do. And now we're going camping on Boxing Day for 12 days.
And there's something really beautiful about that epiphany picture again, like on that 6th of January when the 3 kings arrived. And I mean, my husband just would speak really well into this, but these was actually 4 of them, but 3 of them only arrived, and they followed the stars. They were astrologists, and they followed the stars to sort of find this way towards this happening. And again, on that day, like, sometimes there's just this huge revelation and sometimes there's not, because that actually can happen at any time of the year.
Yeah.
Do you know? And that's
we're
like
not locked into
but
that
there's this time where from a cosmic level you're supported to experience that. But then you get to know it at other times of the year. So there is one of the teachers that I work with, Lisa Romero, she's got this inner work path. She does the lectures around the spiritual year. So she does 4 lectures a year following the spiritual year, which is including Michaelmas and St. John's, and then Christmas and Easter. And so anyone who kind of wants to take that inner development on, that I would definitely recommend doing that. And so then as a family, we've been going, how do we take some of these true pictures and bring them into our family, not to indoctrinate the children, but to live it. You know what I mean? Because we have all these ideas, like anyone can meditate on a mountain, but to be in that space in your home is like tricky.
It's a lot harder.
Yeah.
You've got a lot more distractions.
It is. And to
learn that, I would imagine, would give that much more resilience, which is something that we're both
I think
really
it's like
keen
the true
on.
essence of it, right? It's like recently I've been seeing a lot of people saying it's all good to like do ayahuasca and meditation and all the spiritual trials or whatever you want to call it, but have you ever tried just sitting with your really hard feelings and emotions? And most people can't, but I guess it's the same thing, like actually applying some of these things into your family, which is always usually quite loud and chaotic, is much harder than, you know.
And it is
just
actually
putting the picture on the wall of whatever it may be.
That's right.
Or your like family, you know, manifesto, like this is what we are, but we don't actually do any of it.
Well, that's exactly right. I think a lot of children today don't actually have reverence because there's no place to learn reverence. Like when you were kids or whatever, you might go to church and no one does that anymore, but people are still looking for this place to drop, and just for one moment in the day, like that actual circle, that lighting of the candles are literally over in 15 minutes. Like I don't know why I'm so resistant sometimes, because I mean I do know why, but so and so there's this thing, you know, where we're sitting and we're with it, and they're learning to revere and to live in wonder. And to live in wonder is like to be able to take in all this, like this experience of all these things that are coming towards us. And so where do we get the option for that? Like we go to the beach, we abuse the beach. We go to the forest, we abuse, you know what I mean? Like even, so it's fine for them to be children, but like we have to cultivate reverence as well, because you can't learn that later on.
Yeah. Could you expand on like going to the beach and abusing the beach for people who are like, I don't abuse the beach or the forest?
Well, I'm just more going, like when we walk past and we just rip things off trees and we're not actually connected to, or we, you know, cut things and take them home, like that type of thing is that we're not revering that there's energetic beings that are participating, the sand, the mineral kingdom, you know. And of course we dig holes and do all of that, but it's like this recognition that you're in an exchange with something. And, you know, of course, like little kids, like it's so, you know, you just want to run your hand up the fern and bring all the things off, and you don't want to shame them and say that's naughty, you've got to look after the environment, but to go, oh, how do I show them how to care for it as well? So, you know, like I was swimming the other day. I went up to a school up north and got a chance to have a little swim on the Sunshine Coast, and just so deeply grateful for the net of the ocean that just held me, you know, and supported me to be able to do my work. And it's like, that's what I mean, is like, how awake are we to how much the forests are giving us and how much the ocean gives to us, you know? So, and not to, again, you don't have to bring it to attention to the children, but we turn up us doing it, you know, that we're not disconnected from that, taking all the shells home and, you know, it's like, let's leave them here. But also that revering that there's this sort of cycle of life going on. They don't have to be afraid of it, but you know, there's many philosophers that have said if you want children to save the earth, they have to love it. And part of loving the earth is revering the earth. And you know, sometimes it is really fun to climb a tree, and sometimes it's really important we just sit under a tree and let it nourish us and give back to the tree as well. So what are we cultivating? And that's part of this kind of spirit-led life in a way that, you know what I mean? We're just not habitants of the earth, but we're participating in the earth. So, so the Advent thing's interesting because we often start off with us, and then by the end of it we've got like many people coming to our house. This year we're thinking about, we did it a couple of years ago. We opened up at one of the preschools. We ended up had like 50 families coming every Sunday for 4 Sundays before, because people are looking for something, and it's not a church at all. It's just this time to...
It's just a ritual.
Yeah, that's right. And so it's interesting because my girls are both going up to Woodford because one's playing and the other one's partner's playing, and they're like, you want to come to Woodford, Mum? And they're like, oh, no, you've got your holy nights. I said, I would go if someone could just helicopter me in to listen to you guys sing, and then I could just leave.
You can do a day. We did a day trip last year, actually.
But it is a beautiful place, Woodford. I reckon you could get in and get
Probably
out pretty quick.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a lot, you know, it is, there's a lot of perception going on. You know, any sort of arguments that I have with my partner in that 12 holy nights, I write them down. Just like, this is something. This is actually something for our year ahead.
Gosh, how many couples fight on like New Year's Eve or just like New Year's Day or something? I know there's a lot.
Yeah. Well, and even around Christmas. Like Christmas
is hectic.
It's so hectic.
Wild. It is hectic. Yeah. And that's the thing is like, I actually don't even really know why people celebrate Christmas actually. Like if, you know what I mean?
Lots of people don't know why they do it.
That's right.
It's just like this commercial indoctrination that you've grown up with. Yeah. And it's Santa Claus and presents and and I remember.
It's so hard to break out of it though. Yeah. I remember I've been...
Especially like if all your other family is celebrating.
We tried to reinvent it or figure it out, or like, well, it started because we just didn't want our kids to have this overflow of crappy plastic toys and things like that. And obviously it's really hard to ask your family of that. And then we're like, well, what is it? Like, should we just like, I went through the extremes like, what? I'm not even going to bother celebrating it. It's just like, and we made a driftwood tree and like, we've gone through like lots of trying to figure out how we want to do it and what it means and like what we want our kids to look at it as. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard to break
out of that,
out of what we've been raised to.
Yeah,
it is too, because I think that's how when we kind of purchase gifts for them, I consider what would assist this person forward in their next year. So, and it might be a toy, but it's recognizing this toy is going to take them through a year of life. And even that to me is like, you know, just again that symbol of these revelations or these changes we have, and then they carry us through the year ahead. So the gifts from living Christmas in an awakened way carry you through the year. And the same with the children. It's like, what could I give you even though it's material, that's kind of recognises that it is going to carry you through this year.
I think it's actually a really good reminder is when choosing gifts is just that. Like there's no need to have things,
Kmart, everything.
so many things, like just the things that will actually benefit them for the year. They'll get something that'll enrich their year ahead.
Yeah, that's right. And that's it could be a toy that is, you know, exactly where they are. But it's just that again for me, that thought of rather than, yes, this is the automatic way of acting, but what's a true way right now? Might be not that next year. And that's partly, again, back to the baby picture again, is like, doesn't matter how I've done it before, what's true here between you and I now, you know, and, you know, the clothes they wear or what, you know, all the things, like it's just that consideration. So it's, it's just a small little peek into that. But I just thought it was an interesting time to, even though you're both going through the actual earth version of that, how does everyone get something from this idea of even seeing a pregnant person and going, this incredible mystery is taking place?
I've been pregnant 4 out of 5 times over Christmas. Christmas time. Rosie was born November 11, so she was the only one who I didn't.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow. It's very special.
You're
pregnant over Christmas.
I love it. Well, because I've always conceived in like June or July.
Yeah.
And so, or around then. And so, yeah, it's always been like the same timeline, same time frame. Except Rosie, she just had to be the rogue one. And she is the rogue one.
She has to throw around your idea of life into something else.
Born on the 11th of the 11th. Yeah.
It's coming.
So, but I'm happy to, I mean, look, we've got shabby old pieces of paper with all this written down, but if people wanted to get the songs that we sing, I'm happy to share them with you.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
We have changed. There is an Advent song that we changed some of the words. Instead of having Christ, we have the love being, for example. It just sits well with me. But I also understand these Christ being symbols. But I know for some people there's a real barrier around that, and it doesn't allow them to let the esoteric symbol speak. So I'm happy to let you know our songs, our lighting of the candle and blowing out of the candle songs.
I'll put it in our questionnaire on Spotify and people sing out if you want it. We'll get it to you.
I'm curious. I want to see it. Okay.
Oh, well, I feel like we covered a lot, but also not enough.
There's so many topics. I think we should have like the Melanie show or the Melanie series.
Yeah, because we did actually have a few questions on, I mean, recently, and I'm going to derail this conversation. We're done with this conversation now. But recently we did have Joe Robinson, who is a sex therapist who I was talking to about earlier, on, and someone had actually asked us to ask you about sex education for our children and how to bring that in a Steiner way.
Yeah.
So age appropriate and all of these things, which I don't think we're going to get time to do right now. But Melanie, it would be a really good one, I think, for our next conversation.
Yeah, well, that would be good because that's actually the work I do with many schools around. I can say the world now because I just got back from Taiwan working with the schools over there.
Good.
So we do work with this healthy relationships program from class 4 all the way through to class 12. So, bring me back.
Yes.
They can also check our website. There is all the sort of content that we work with there as well. But it is a big question. And, you know, at the basis of it is if we can recognise this spiritual individual being that is going through a growth process from birth to adulthood, how would we strengthen them to face any questions that we have? You know, I think we do meet a lot of these questions from the intellect or from fear, but if we can really school and honour and revere this spiritual being and strengthen their relationship to themselves, then a lot of the questions we have won't be a question anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm happy to speak into that.
That'd be amazing. So we've already mentioned your website, which we'll link to again. Yeah. I think it's actually on our first conversation. And is there any other things coming up for you, Melanie? This will air just before Christmas.
So only that I'm off to Adelaide next week and then Cairns, and then I'm kind of quietening down for the rest of the year. But I would recommend if people are interested in working from an adult perspective with this work to go to innerworkpath.com and sign up to the Advent workshop with Lisa, because it's really powerful work, and it's many people from all over the world are joining, and it's really lovely to sort of have a place to live consciously, and if this work speaks to you, then follow that through for sure.
Amazing. We'll link to that as well. Thank you again so much, Melanie, for coming in. It's always a pleasure, and we look forward to our next conversation.
Yes. See you then.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Road to Wisdom podcast. To join the journey, you can follow us on Instagram at theroadtowisdom.podcast and at www.theroadtowisdompodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. We look forward to seeing you next week with more juicy content.